What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we'll be taking a peek over here at the altcoin market and over there at the Bitcoin price chart, talking about how we're doing here in the crypto market compared to really kind of the equity market, which has really been more in a bounce. Now, when it comes to equity and when it comes to crypto, the sponsor of this channel is Linqto, which gives you the ability to invest in private equity companies prior to them going public, who have a ton of actual crypto companies here on their website that you can invest in prior to them going IPO. For this weekend only, they've dropped the minimum investment down to $5,000, which is cut in half. So to promote the idea of a diversified portfolio, they're trying to lower the barrier of entry for each of these assets. You can check out the link in the description of this video to Linqto and take advantage of the lowered minimums throughout this weekend only. Now, moving back over to the charts. Now, fortunately for the cryptocurrency market, the altcoin market is working on its 6th consecutive green week. As we all know, we went through 11 consecutive reds, an insane time period here for the market, met with a lot of contagion that happened in the market. But lately, we've been going through 6 weeks of green. I think one of the questions on all of our minds are we going to get our way back up really quickly, or are we going to do things like we've seen Bitcoin do back at the bottom of previous bear markets, where it kind of consolidates there for a long time? You know, whether or not, are we moving our way up quickly, or are we going to do like a Wyckoff accumulation in here that can last a long time? One of the things about Bitcoin is it's really just not doing a whole lot. And I think we all kind of know that. We hit our low back there in the middle of June when all the chaos was happening. But really, it's just kind of been meandering over here a little bit, right? That's going to get everybody worried about bear flags and continuations of further moves down. I've already kind of gone through all the details a million times at this point on why it seems possible that the bottom is actually already in, based on a multitude of things, including that we've backtested the all-time high, including that we've shown the ending capitulation phases, that we've even in our fractals come back to the same locations, and that the entire move that we've had here has been that of a 786 Fibonacci retracement, right pinned to the nail, hit it on the head. So I see a lot of cases for the reasons why the bottom could be in for Bitcoin, rather than that it's an actual bear flag that's going to break down to new lows. If we went lower, we'd be losing all of those different things: Fibonacci retracements, all-time high, capitulation structures, and even coming back to our same levels that were expected in this fractal. So I'm going to entertain more of just like a bullish accumulation happening here in Bitcoin rather than bear flag. But there's no question about Bitcoin in here. It is just meandering, and we've shown it a million times over that Bitcoin, crypto, tends to follow the stock market. Well, we could see where Bitcoin is. Well, we could look at the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones has already retraced 50%. Bitcoin's sitting like way down here, whereas the Dow is all the way back up at May 5th prices. For Bitcoin, that's right there. Quite a big difference for Bitcoin and for the Dow. The same goes for the S&P 500. It's back at a 50% retracement, whereas Bitcoin is still way down here. Again, May 5th prices. And the same is true for the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ has gotten above the 382 Fibonacci retracement, still back at May 5th prices over here, whereas Bitcoin is way down here. So what is going on with Bitcoin? Why is it not catching up with the rest of the stock market as it typically does, and it has been, having some of the most correlated ratios in history recently? Why are we not catching up with there? So that's kind of the big question, the wonder out there, that when I think of that, I say, well, are we still dealing with some of the underlying stuff from like liquidity issues where the price just can't push itself up? Is there still unraveling of leverage happening here in Bitcoin particularly? That wasn't just due to the stock market, because not only did we have our stock market fall, but you guys know we had everything else that went along with it. The Luna and UST collapse, Three Arrows Capital, Voyager Digital, Celsius, USDT unpegging. Hard to know, but there's no question the bottom came in. The bottom came in over here in the stock market. We're over 50% retraced here in the Dow Jones. But Bitcoin is just showing exceptional weakness. So Bitcoin in itself is not showing a strong reversal coming out of here, whereas Ethereum is really kind of given more of a boost, right? Ethereum has at least gotten above a retracement level at this point. So it kind of just takes me back to, you know, how have things played out with this for this entire time period, right? We didn't get as excessive back there in April of 2021. But our move down has all behaved in coordination with all of this. And while are we just doing something like this, but due to all the issues that happened in crypto with leverage unwinding happening, And if there's still unwinding that's happening in here, is this why we're not seeing as big of volatile bounces in the accumulation phases as we did in the past? And so kind of just like looking at these things on these smaller time frames and just kind of zooming in, is this more of what's still just happening in here? Is this really just a beginning of longer accumulation happening here in Bitcoin? And considering that this is how these things have played out in here for Bitcoin during this whole time period, it would seem reasonable to think, hey, this is kind of what's happening in here. We're in this kind of phase in here, but we're just not even showing as enough strength to even bounce up super high right now, maybe due to the leverage unwinding happening still behind the scenes. That's difficult to say. That's just complete speculation, and I don't have inside access to know if that's true, if that's what's happening in here. But one would have to say, look, we haven't shown any like really big massive bounce. Does it seem like accumulation of a longer time period happening for Bitcoin in here seems logical? It does to me, with how the structure is looking and how it still just hasn't gotten any steam and hasn't been keeping up with the stock market for some reason. Maybe it's starting to kind of do its own thing in regards to a longer accumulation for Bitcoin. However, all is not lost. I've been peeking around to see if there ever been phases like this where you could do something like this, because if you look out there on Twitter, people are going to tell you this is a bear flag and this thing is going to break down. Time will tell. But essentially, people are pointing to saying, hey, this is going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that we're not going to be able to exceed wave 1 over here. And then that's the breakdown, which, just so you all know, on a count, if you were doing a count like this on an Elliott wave, wave 1 is actually right in here. This is wave 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. In Elliott waves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wave 1 is always above the height of wave 5. Wave 2 and 3, or wave 3 comes in below wave 5, and wave 4 pulls back up, and then you have wave 5. So either way, a lot of people are pointing to this right here. This is the resistance. This is where we're going to break down from, because this is wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. My guess is that's not the case. You would lose way too many things. So is this structure, have we ever seen anything like this where you could just do something like that and then rampage? Because let's admit it, man, that looks bear flaggy. And while I was looking at the bottom of what Binance looked like back in 2018 and 2019 when that bottom came in there, and that's very similar to how this looks. And it's going to look like an awful bear flag, but was it? No. Capitulation had already completed itself, and this was just ugly accumulation at the bottom. When we go back to 2018's ending for Bitcoin, I don't know how many people were here during that time period. I definitely was here during that time period, and it was thought to be the same thing. It was thought that Bitcoin was going to go down to about $1,200 to $1,800 at that point, and that it was bear flagging from the bottom. As we all know, it eventually broke its way to the upside. And, before anybody comments and says, no, that's different, it's obvious, the sentiment was identical to this. It was that we're going lower. And anybody who says it was different than that, you weren't here. That's not true. The general sentiment was we were going to go lower. And I have my emotional log all written out from all of that at that time. I have that documented nearly day by day with paragraphs written on each day of what it was like down in there, accumulating in there, and what the sentiment was like and what people were saying. And even I was convinced at that point. The people were so loud that we were going to go lower that even I was convinced that it was possible and probable that it was going to happen. But as we know, it turned its way up. So I'm less convinced that this is really a bear flag that is actually going to break down and set new lows, but more of just kind of a meandering accumulation happening in here. And it's interesting that it's still being held down so low with the stock market already up. So I think in the coming weeks, we're going to kind of get a clearer idea on, is this accumulation going to take its sweet time working through here? And I think the thing that would really kind of give us a more clear picture on something like that would be if prices did start kind of like working down in here and then settling further. I still wouldn't believe that we're going to go take out those lows, but it's still just longer accumulation as we've seen through the past. But the interesting thing is, pointing to what has already happened in the rest of the market, is that one, we can see that these things can just turn their way up. And we know that Ethereum already has. For the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 argument, even here on Ethereum, if that was to be applied to Bitcoin, which is a big argument out there, well, Ethereum's already invalidated that at this point, right? Ethereum's invalidated that that's actually what's happening in the market. So considering that the stock market has already gotten above 50% and back to May 5th pricing, and that Ethereum has already broken through a Fibonacci retracement level and taken out this level perceived to be wave 1 for more further waves down, and invalidated that this is a structure that keeps going down, and that Bitcoin has been following this thing all along the way, coming back to the same levels in here for a bottom to come in. It still seems plausible that all we're doing in here is accumulating and that this thing can rip its way back up to the upside still. Because if Ethereum structure is true, that's what Ethereum structure is saying. That it may pause out in here for a minute as we see happen. But if this is a bigger accumulation phase happening here for Ethereum, that there's still a rip to the upside to come and not prolonged accumulation. So while this thing is ugly as can possibly be, and all you do is you take yourself a little bit of a parallel channel here and go like this, and you say, man, bear flag, bear flag. Well, those bear flags don't really matter when you get down to the actual bottom of these things. And I think it's in Bitcoin's favor that, let's be real. I mean, if we have followed this just like this for as long as we have like this, right? What would it say? It'd say, hey, dude, we got a long accumulation ahead of us right now. But other elements in the market that are doing things different than having a long accumulation like that would be that Ethereum is already popping up and that the stock market is. And so to each their own on their theory on what's going to happen with the stock market, right? I have my own theory. I can come up with 100 different theories that there are, but in the end, you got to pick one that you think is most likely to happen, right? For me personally, my favorite theory that I have for the Dow Jones Industrial Average at this point is that we roll back up to these prices in here, prices pull back in here, then we go off and we set new highs, right? So if I think that the Dow is still going to keep rising and that we've already risen past the 50% retracement, well, Bitcoin, you're massively lagging behind here. And so I think it's more favorable at least to see that other aspects of the market are going up, right? What would be more fearful to happen would be that if Bitcoin was actually rising a little bit, but the rest of the market was kind of going like this or like this, but Bitcoin was kind of showing its own divergence moving to the upside. That would make me a little bit more worried, saying, well, we're seeing underlying weakness over there in the stock market. We're seeing underlying weakness in the big names out there. But when you look at the top 4 assets, what do you have? You have Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Binance Coin. Well, number 2 is Ethereum. It's already working its way up. Number 3 is Binance Coin, and it's already worked its way up. It's already back at May 26 pricing. So you have the stock market up here, and you have number 2 and number 3 up here. Unless if there is some type of leverage unwinding and contagion thing still happening behind the scenes that we can't see happening in here, it seems more favorable for Bitcoin to get itself to at least catch up with number 2 and number 3, and then at least get itself back up to stock market pricing rather than long accumulation. But either way, I'll put my name on it. I do not think that's a bear flag. That's going to new lows. So what do you think? Do you think we're going to get out of here pretty quick? Do you think we've got a long path ahead of us? Or do you think we're going to catch up to the stock market and catch up to Ethereum and Binance Coin? Comment below and let me know. And I know there's a lot of you out there that think we're going to go to new lows. If you think we're going to go to new lows, give me a good argument why. I'll listen to it. I read every comment. Every single comment on this channel goes through approval. If you've noticed in the comments of my videos, there are never scammers in the comments of my videos because for a year and a half, every single comment goes through approval, which means hundreds of scammers get blocked and deleted every single day and never make it into the comment section of my video because everything goes through manual approval. So comment below. I'll read it. Give me your theory. While this does say we go into long accumulation happening in here, I'll make my guess. With Ethereum and Binance already being right here and with the stock market already being right here, my guess is going to be that we're going to actually break up. The thing is, we've been in here for 2 whole months at this point. So does it mean it's going to happen tomorrow? Does it mean it's going to happen next week or the week after that? It's been 2 months. But my bias is that the bottom is in. And if we're going to catch up here, and I had to guess how it's going to happen, it'll be just like bottoms typically have. Right now, there's probably a lot of leverage in both directions. There's probably leverage to the upside and leverage to the downside. And the thing that we're probably going to do, if I had to guess, would be something similar to what we have right in here, is to go take out all of the leveraged longs, which will then create a bunch of leveraged shorts. And then that is the start of the actual move to the upside by then going and liquidating all the shorts and then catching up to Ethereum and Binance Coin and catching up to the rest of the stock market. Because while I do know we have followed this thing all the way until this point, this type of accumulation that happened in here for Bitcoin was the type of accumulation that was Wyckoff accumulation, setting it up to go on a massive bull run way to the upside. Not going to be a favorable thing for me to say right here. I don't think Bitcoin's going on a massive bull run to the upside. I think we're more so focusing on retracements happening in here. So I'm going to guess that the bottom that comes in here is not going to be that of a very long, 1 year long prolonged Wyckoff accumulation that leads to the start of some new massive bull run, but that things are going to be changing here in Bitcoin, and that the key elements to be watching here is what happens when Bitcoin goes back into some kind of a retracement. So the things working in Bitcoin's favor right now for it to get some type of big move up would be that the stock market is already up here. As for this accumulation level that took place right here from May through June, a lot of the market's already there, and some of it is beyond there. That was way down here for Chainlink. It was right here for Near, way down here for Uniswap, right here for AVAX, SHIB, Ethereum Classic, Ethereum, Matic, Atom, Cosmos, Binance Coin, and QNT. So it's not just a small segment of the market that has already gotten right back here. It's a lot of stuff that has gotten to it or beyond it. So for confluence in the rest of the market, we're seeing elements in there that are favorable for Bitcoin to work its way back up. Some of it already getting out, and even the stock market already getting out. So my best guess, Bitcoin's going to catch up with the rest of the market. I don't think it's going to go into a year-long consolidation. I definitely don't think it's going to set new lows before going into at least a retracement. But the big question on everybody's mind is, after being in here for 2 months and just meandering over here, is it a bear flag? And are those who are claiming that this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going to be right, and that this actually is wave 1 to get rejected here at wave 4, even though that has proven to not be true everywhere we look throughout the rest of the market, that this is not acting as a wave 1, 2, 3, and that we're going back up. So 2 months of consolidation, lots of screaming out there that we're bear flagging. My best guess, we're not. Will there be some trickery in there to take out the leveraged longs, stimulate the bears and massage the bear sentiment to get them all to short, only to liquidate them afterwards? I think that's my best guess. And as a lot of you guys know, I'm a bigger believer in the altcoin market than Bitcoin during this phase of the market that we're in right now. The Bitcoin dominance is still hovering way down here in the low. In typical bear markets for Bitcoin, or at least in the 2018 bear market for Bitcoin, the Bitcoin dominance should be way up here. It should be sitting way up here at this point right now. If Bitcoin is getting ready to break down much lower, there would be this flight to Bitcoin right now during this moment, which we're not seeing. We're seeing the Bitcoin dominance set up to like what happens right before these things start to fall apart. So it's more favorable for the altcoin market seeing this setup here happening in the Bitcoin dominance. So it's not surprising to see that the altcoin market is outperforming Bitcoin, because this Bitcoin dominance is screaming that this structure breaks down. So Bitcoin doesn't appear to be that it's actually going to be the center of attention during whatever phase of this market is coming right now. But I also don't imagine Bitcoin just sitting down at the absolute lows during a moment where the Bitcoin dominance is falling apart. Historically, in those moments, it's a phase where like Bitcoin is moving upward, but still the altcoin market is moving upward even faster than Bitcoin. So that plays a role in my thesis as well. But the point of this video was to show Bitcoin is really lagging behind what's happening with the rest of the cryptocurrency market and what's happening in the stock market. And it's a big head scratcher on why it actually is. Is it actually going into really long accumulation happening in here? Or is it on the brink of a breakout happening down in here where it starts really marching its way up? I'm taking a public stance to say, I don't think Bitcoin's breaking down to the downside and that it's not a bear flag that is going to just crumble on itself. But it's absolutely interesting. And seeing this happening down here on the lows is not a structure we've seen on the lows from Bitcoin before. This is something new for Bitcoin to happen down in here. And there's not really any references to go back and look at on Bitcoin's price chart to poke at this, unless if we just said it was kind of a modified version of one of these things down in here. So is it something different? Is it getting ready to long squeeze, then followed by crushing all of the shorts? Or is it long accumulation? Let me know what you think below. I'd love to hear your ideas. We've been paused here for 2 months. Bitcoin's particular prices are not the biggest of interest to me for my personal holdings. I'm like 90% in the altcoin market, so I pay way more attention to the altcoin market. That's why I talk about it a lot. But what's your theory? And even for those who think that we're going to break down and set new lows in here, let me know what you think. But I challenge you to do something, because I see people who do it all the time. They comment in the comments below. They say, we're going to $15,000. We're going to $14,000, and then we can go up. I have thoroughly presented the argument on this channel on why setting new lows for Bitcoin from where it's currently at right now causes tremendous structural damage to the chart. You lose the Fibonacci retracements, you lose the previous all-time high. You're also really going to lose that 200-week moving average in there by dipping down even lower, which it has now reclaimed. And then you're going to really deviate away from what this capitulation structure looked like back in here. So I'll hear out arguments for those who think that we're going to new lows, but man, you're going to have to come out with a really strong case than just saying we've got to go down to $12,000, $13,000 because Bitcoin's always fallen 84%. You got to do better than that, because I've kind of dispelled that problem there, that if you're just saying we got to go that far because we went down these 2 times, we went down that far, you got to do better than that. So if you got something for me, bring it. But I've got pretty strong conviction in here that I think that that's the low in here. Now we're trying to figure out accumulation in here. Is this long spread accumulation happening in here for Bitcoin? Or a quick move up is hiding in the shadows because we know that the altcoin market's already up here and we know that the stock market's already up here and that there's a surprise coming for Bitcoin pretty soon. My best guess, that's the case. So we'll spend the last couple of minutes taking a look over here at the altcoin market, talking about what I'm looking at as we head into the weekend. The big moves that happened this week were in the altcoin market and Ethereum as we were able to break through that daily candle close level and hang out here. I talked about this for several weeks leading up to this, that if we were able to get up in here, I would actually find it reasonable and common for us to actually accumulate in here for a little while. An example of that would actually be Ethereum Classic 2, which that by the time it did get back into these levels and was able to clear through right in here, it accumulated for a while. I would consider that to be reasonable and expected to happen here. A little concerning if we start seeing it move down like this. Again, if we see a long squeeze happen in Bitcoin, that's possible. But the most favorable thing I think we can look for the altcoin market going into the weekend is to really just kind of stay still. My expectations are not that we will just plow through this level. It's pretty uncommon to happen. Hey, I'm all for it if it does. I definitely would hate to see rejection, but the most common thing to happen in this level for bullish continuation is pausing out here, which would be the same story for Ethereum happening in here, which, as if you don't know, we got the news this week. The Ethereum merge is scheduled to happen somewhere around September 15th, September 16th. So what do we see? Play the narrative out. See a pause, a run up into the excitement of the merge maybe. Then shortly before the merge ends up happening, it pulls back. So if you don't really know how to do news narratives in this game, there's usually a run up prior to an event, and then the sell-off begins days before the event and eventually happens typically. So if there is going to be a pre-merge pump, typically those pumps end days before the actual event happens. But in these types of situations, now that we've gotten our way back in here, the most common thing is just consolidation. So a boring weekend this weekend would be a welcomed weekend. After what we've done, after this breakout, just holding it, just consolidating, I'd consider that to be a successful weekend. As for XRP, still really not showing any strength yet. Would like to see us at least get up into these levels and be able to hold on top of here, but XRP has not cleared up there like the altcoin market has and like Ethereum has and like all those other coins that we pointed to at this point. Getting at least up in here and doing some consolidation for XRP would be welcomed. But as we could see, it still hasn't gotten there. But so if you see a break happen in XRP and it breaks up to say 42 cents, I know how this community is. I'm right there with you. It's exciting to see that go. That's my biggest bag. If I see that thing move, I get excited too. But a rise into the 42 to 43 cent region. And then if it just pauses there and just kind of stops, well, that's because it was a technical area to pull back into and to consolidate at. But as we head into this weekend, I think we actually had a really good week in the markets in general. And I know it doesn't seem like prices moved a whole lot this week, but there were some really great things that happened in the market. And it came, with the stock market, with the Dow Jones taking out that June 1st high, and then also breaking out of that parallel channel that it's been in, along with getting beyond a 50% retracement. That typically means the bottom has been marked in the stock market, and we've moved on to the new phase. The new phase is that the market is trying to rip back to the upside. The downtrend is over, and we're heading into now the technical fighting area to see if the stock market can push up and go even higher. That move right there was so awesome that we got that this week. And I think it doesn't look like much on this chart, but it's such a technical big deal. I'm celebrating that And I'm so happy to see that the altcoin market was able to clear through the daily candle closes down in here. And, not just saying that too, but I mean, really, if we look at where the actual bottoms did come in down in here, they were way down here on all of these. So we've actually gotten ourselves quite a little ways above where this floor really was at down in here that ended up holding it each time that it wicked down to, right? This was really where it just kind of fell apart. We're pretty far beyond that at this point. But the big thing too was to be able to get through the daily candle close, and we've at least gotten through that too. So I'm happy to see that happen this week. It was another milestone moment to happen in the market along with the Dow Jones. Not big, gigantic moves that happened here, right? But they were technical good moves. And the same thing goes with Ethereum. And, one of the things I'll be watching out for here with Ethereum going forward is now we know in 1 month from right now, there's going to be a lot of attention on crypto. We're going to have the big merge coming, right? I didn't even cover the whole BlackRock news, partnering with Coinbase and all that stuff. And it sounds like that's going to be a narrative that's going to be pushed to a lot. Like we have a lot of exciting narratives that are coming up in the cryptocurrency market as well right now that have kind of emerged in these last couple of weeks. We've kind of come out of the dark storm. The tornado is over from all of the contagion that happened in this market, and we're moving more towards positive news narratives. We're having good technical breaks happening in the market, and we have things to look forward to in the market from a news narrative perspective as well, or catalyst perspective. So overall, not like a super exciting price action week that we had in here. Pretty small figures, but technical good moves. And for that, I'd celebrate this week as a success. And it begs the question of why this video was even made in the first place. If the stock market is doing so well, and if the altcoin market is technically breaking through key levels, what is going on with Bitcoin down here? And is there something cooking? It's hard to imagine this thing could go on much longer than what it already has without giving some type of direction. And it's definitely behind the rest of the altcoin market and definitely behind the stock market. And if I had to make my best guess, it's going to surprise a lot of us and eventually catch up at some point. Because Bitcoin's done a really good job of following the stock market for a very long time. And this week, we got a clear breakout happening in here. And if we continue doing what we've always done, then Bitcoin's got some catching up to do. So we'll wait and see what Bitcoin has to do. Otherwise, a really great week that we had here in all markets. I've made it kind of tradition the last couple of Fridays to give a fish tank update and a drumming update. There's not a whole lot to say on the drumming front. I have been drumming a lot, like 2 hours a day. But as for the fish tank, we're still doing good. Everybody has remained alive all week, so everybody's getting kind of settled into the tank. There is one fish that I don't know how well it's doing, but these guys, they all look pretty good and pretty healthy, and they seem to be getting along just fine. So a week of success with the fish tank, we'll take it, and a week of success in the markets for sure. So, all right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. Once again, the sponsor of this video is Linqto, private investing made simple, private investing into companies before they go and have their IPO. So get in before the crowd does. I do personally invest over here on Linqto's platform. In the spirit of diversification, they have lowered the minimum threshold from $10,000 to $5,000 for accredited investors interested in investing in their plethora of assets they have available here on their platform. The reduced minimums are good for this weekend only. Again, you can check them out by visiting the link in the description of this video to Linqto. And on that note, I'm going to wrap this thing up. I hope that you guys have a wonderful weekend. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.